UFC fighters lose 20 pounds overnight before they're meant to fight, and it's all down to the weight cut, sometimes known as the fight before the fight.
You feel like you're dying. Your heart is pounding. You're laying in bed.
Well, you kind of are dying.
You 100% are dying.
They manipulate their body to lose almost all their water so that they can weigh in way below their natural weight, put all that weight back on, and hopefully have a size advantage. It's incredibly dangerous. They routinely look ill, can faint on the scales, and their bodies can completely shut down. In the most extreme cases, fighters have died due to their weight cuts. All of this just a day before they step into a cage and trade blows with an elite fighter. So just why do MMA fighters lose so much weight? And what are the risks? So we all know that UFC fighters don't actually weigh the same weight as the division they fight in. Take Conor McGregor back in his featherweight days. He'll only weigh the required 145 pounds for all of a couple of hours so that he can successfully weigh in, then rehydrate back to his normal size.
When you see certain fighters get on the scale though, like Conor McGregor when he made 145,
it's crazy.
Looked like a zombie man, like a Walking Dead character.
Yeah.
In some of the extreme cases, fighters can lose and put back on almost 20% of their total weight. For example, Jeff Neal at UFC 298 against Ian Gary weighed in at 170.5 pounds, but the following day, he stepped into the octagon weighing over 200 pounds. He literally gained 18% in a single day. And the big reason they put their bodies through all that trauma is to hopefully have an advantage come fight night.
I think cutting weight is just silly. Like, I was talking to my girlfriend about it and she was like, wait, you guys, she didn't know much about fighting at the time, obviously, but she was like, you guys make this weight, but the next day you're not the same weight, so why not just not weigh in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's stupid.
It is stupid.
She's like, it sounds really stupid. That's not what you fight at.
It's sanctioned cheating.
When fighters are closely matched in terms of skill, the physical differences between the two can be the deciding factor. So despite weighing in at the same weight, if one fighter is 10 or maybe even 20 pounds heavier, it's a huge bonus on paper. But the irony is, when everyone is weight cutting, it's rare that two fighters will step into the octagon with a huge weight discrepancy.
Anybody who really closely follows this sport is probably not a fan of extreme weight cutting. I mean, I don't know how you can be a fan of it at this point. It's just, it's an archaic sort of thing that has been ingrained in this culture of mixed martial arts where you just deplete your body of all the water in it and then you put it all right back in, and these guys are fundamentally the same size or near the same size anyway.
Sure, some fighters take it to an extreme that others don't, but for the majority of the time, they put themselves through hell just to not have a disadvantage. So how do they get their bodies to lose 30 pounds in a matter of days just to put it all back on in a matter of hours? Well, around 60% of the human body consists of water. So if a fighter is looking to shed the pounds fast, they need to flush that water out. Without going into the exact science of it, they drink quite literally gallons of water per day around a week before they weigh in. Then they taper off to where they're essentially drinking no water whatsoever. Combine this with eliminating carbohydrates as they store extra water, sodium for similar reasons, and it puts the body into the state where it's flushing out water like crazy.
You go from drinking a gallon, 2 gallons a day to literally no water. And it's like, what? I don't get any water? Like, bro, I just drank a whole gallon yesterday. Now I get none? Oh, this sucks.
Now I'm nil by mouth, nothing can pass me lips, and you're just like, oh.
And, you throw an ice cube or two in there, and it's just like, oh, you gotta spit that out. Bro, it's an ice cube. You're spitting out an ice cube? Like, yeah, it makes a difference.
Then they'll either use the sauna, wear sweatsuits, do some light cardio, and can be in a position where they're losing water weight at an unimaginable rate. But it comes at a cost.
200 грамм бывает. Ну, мы, если хочешь, 300 добавим тебе. Стоп. Что, пускай посидит и встанет. Зуба, тебе еще завтра гонять, брат. Давай ты сегодня...
Соберись, умирать не должен, что Зуба.
Завтра, брат, брюшку еще.
Не делал. Надо чуть собраться.
For reference, a pound of water is around 15 ounces or 450 milliliters. So when we're talking about weight cuts of up to 30 pounds, that's buckets of sweat.
Очень сильно полезно.
Выдели.
немножко паузу. Я не знаю, как уже 10 килограммов 4 есть.
It's actually not that uncommon to see two UFC fighters just a couple of days away from beating each other to a pulp, side by side in the hotel gym, shedding those extra pounds on the treadmill. Once they get within a few pounds of the target weight, the battle is finally over. They can sleep as best as they can with the dehydration and nerves, lose the remaining pounds overnight, and weigh in the morning. From there, it's the next stage, rehydration. They'll slowly guzzle liters of fluids, electrolytes, introduce carbs into their system, and within 24 hours will be back to their natural weight. Fighters can look like skeletons during the morning weigh-ins, then look jacked, pumped up, and ready to go by the ceremonial weigh-ins that very same evening.
We're lying when those people get on the scale. When they get on the scale and they flex and they say 170, sure, you're 170 for about an hour, you know, and then you're going to go right back up to what you were before you dehydrated yourself. This is madness to me. And this goes against what fighting is supposed to be, what we talked about before, about discipline and focus and technique and training. That's what competing is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about a fight where two equally skillful individuals try to figure out who's got the best strategy and who's got the best will and technique. It's not supposed to be about who can do this legal cheating thing best.
But every time a fighter goes through an extreme weight cut like this, they roll the dice with their own life.
More dangerous, also kidney problems, organs shut down. And the instances that I know that people have died from MMA, there was one in Russia where a guy died from a fight that apparently he had like some sort of a pre-existing condition. But I know of at least 2 guys who died in Brazil from weight cutting.
Much like we said that the body is 60% water, the brain is almost 3/4 water, with most of the body's organs being way above that 60% number. So all that water fighters lose, it's coming from the most essential parts of them, and dehydrating the brain just before the day of the fight is obviously a risky business. There's a theory that fighters who cut huge amounts of weight can be more susceptible to one-punch knockouts as their brain hasn't fully recovered. We often see fighters move up a weight class like Dustin Poirier fight bigger, more powerful guys, yet seem to have a stronger chin than when they were competing against smaller opposition.
You were a big 145. Like how rough was that cut?
It was horrible, and it made me hate the process because my quality of life sucked. You know, training camps were torture. You know, I would walk around 190.
Jesus
I'd get up to 190.
Christ.
I'd get up to 190.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You get up to 190 and go down to 145. 45 fucking pounds?
Dude,
But aside from a big weight cut potentially making a fighter chinny, there's not too many competitive reasons to not do it. Sure, you may lose a little bit of strength, it will likely mess with your sleep, but in most fighters' eyes that's well worth being 5 or 10 pounds heavier than your opponent. The real risks of the weight cut are the long-term impacts and when it goes wrong. We've all seen those clips of fighters shaking in pain, hardly able to walk to the scales or even passing out on the scales. Yet, these are supposed to be these superhuman gladiator-like athletes in their physical prime, but just the day before a fistfight, they can hardly stand up without losing consciousness. And on countless occasions, it's ended up with MMA fighters rushed to the hospital, their fight cancelled, and them quite literally knocking on death's door.
I passed out, I woke up, I was on the floor, and then people were over me. One of the guys from Alpha Male, Danny Castillo was there. He took charge of the situation. He was pressing down, he was putting ice on me and stuff like that. I remember holding him a little bit, I passed out again.
Before Valentina Shevchenko reigned supreme in the UFC's flyweight division, the first champion, Nico Montano, was actually stripped of her title due to a weight cut gone wrong. While being transported to hospital, presumably in unimaginable pain, and hooked up to IVs to keep her alive, Dana White stripped her of the title then and there.
Nico Montano, the reigning UFC, or maybe not reigning anymore, the UFC women's flyweight champion, has been stripped of her title, according to Dana White. Nico was hospitalized this morning, Friday morning, while cutting weight. Her fight with Valentina Shevchenko was ultimately canceled, and now, just hours later, we find out that she has been stripped of the title.
And although Montana would have all but certainly lost to Shevchenko anyway, this botched weight cut cost her hundreds of thousands of dollars in pay-per-view money. For TJ Dillashaw, his weight loss to 125 pounds led him to take EPO and destroy his entire legacy. Even perhaps the most anticipated fight in UFC history, Khabib versus Tony Ferguson, was cancelled one of the times after Khabib's weight cut went wrong. But thankfully, while no one in the UFC has suffered life-threatening problems that we know of, the same can't be said for the entirety of MMA. Back in 2015, a 21-year-old flyweight fighter in ONE FC sadly died after suffering a heart attack due to complications from his weight cut.
How many more?
Yeah.
You know, how many more people have to, you know, pass away for the community to actually really take action? And you know, I'm doing some research, and what I found so far is that I think that, I'm not 100%, but I think that more people have actually died from cutting weight versus actually fighting in the cage.
As a result, ONE FC banned weight cutting and introduced hydration testing to try and make fighters compete at their natural weights.
We should have done it a long time ago in the UFC.
Man,
I really think that.
All the weight cut issues, all that stuff, like ruining cards, all that, it would all be eliminated, right?
Yes, ruining cards, and even more importantly, I think causing fighters to fight at less than their full potential.
Yeah.
How many fighters got hit when they shouldn't have gotten hit because if they were recovered completely, if they didn't have to, not recovered completely, but if they didn't have to recover from a weight cut? I mean, who knows? Maybe there's shots you ate because that you wouldn't have eaten.
It hasn't been perfect, as fighters are able to trick the tests, but it's at least a step in the right direction. There's hope that considering they were able to drug test fighters at random with USADA, they could introduce a similar method to weighing fighters throughout the year and putting them in weight classes themselves. But until the UFC does something major, MMA fans can keep expecting cancelled fights, drama at weigh-ins, and videos of fighters in severe pain. And speaking of drama, we covered the times that regular folks got into fights with UFC stars without knowing. So if that's your interest, check out our video here.